So this is a video on how to water your houseplants. Now watering is the main issue that people have when it comes to houseplants, and this is the main reason that plants die on them. And a lot of people wonder how come they can have such nice gardens and they're quite good gardeners, but when it comes to houseplants, all the plants just seem to die in them even if they're green fingered in the garden. Now the main reason for this is because of they're in pots and because of the watering. Now when the plants are outside in the wild or when they're in the garden, there's basically unlimited amount of soil for their roots to grow into. So say if it only rains once a week, you might get a lot of rain, but it's not going to be too much because it's absorbed by a huge amount of soil. And then if it doesn't rain for 2 or 3 weeks, it's not going to kill the plant because there's got a big source of soil for that's absorbed lots and lots of water that the plant can utilise. It's the complete opposite with houseplants. So you've just got this small pot which can only take maybe 200 millimeters of water, or maybe a cup of water. If you give it any more than that, it will be too wet and it will drown and die. If you don't water it for a week, the plant will use all that water up, they can't get any more water, and it will also die. So that's why it's so much more difficult to look after houseplants than it is to do gardening. So I'll give you some simple tips on how to keep your houseplant alive through correct watering. What you want to do when you first get a houseplant is check it very regularly, because you won't know exactly how often it needs watering when you first get it. But you'll slowly pick it up as time goes on and you get to know that houseplant better. So every houseplant is different, depends on lots of different factors like where it's placed, what kind of plant it is. But there's a few things you can do just to know if it needs watering. So the first thing to do, a common way of people telling if it needs watering is if it's drooping. That can also be the same for overwatering, so I wouldn't use that as a factor. Also, if you don't water it until it starts drooping, then you're actually stressing the plant out a lot because it's drooping because it's dying. So what you really want to do is avoid any wilting of the plant. So several ways you can tell by soil colour. It does depend on your type of compost. For example, this stuff here is dry, this is damp, it's darker. But the best way to tell is probably by feeling with your finger. If the top's dry but lower down is damp, then I wouldn't water. But if you go down 1 centimetre or ½ an inch and it's still dry, then I would water it a bit more. What you would want to do, depending on the houseplant, water from the top and let it drain through the bottom, or just fill up the saucer that it's on and let the plant naturally soak it up. Another way you can tell if it's dry is is by the weight. So you feel it. It should be quite heavy if it's had enough water. If it's very light, then it shows that there's no water left in it. But this also depends on the compost. So you'll need to fill with your fingers the first few times. Then once you get an idea of what it feels like when it's had enough water, and what it feels like when it's dry, then you can just use the weight of it to tell how much it needs. Now once you have watered it, what you want is a little bit of water. If you water from the top, you want a little bit of water to collect in the saucer, or if you water from the bottom, you want to fill the saucer completely. Now if there's still water in the saucer after an hour, that means the soil can't absorb all the water and the pot is absolutely saturated with water, and that will actually kill the plant by drowning. So what you want to do then is empty the saucer, get rid of the excess water, leave it another hour, have a look, see if it's empty. Then if it's empty, that's fine. If the plant absorbs the whole saucer within about 10 minutes, then you want to give it fill the saucer up once again. And keep doing that until the saucer it takes about an hour to empty. But then again, if it doesn't empty within an hour, then you want to tip it out and then you know it's had enough water. So if you follow this principle, your plant should be perfectly healthy. They shouldn't suffer any problems with watering. The other way to make it easier for watering, because when you first get a houseplant, it'll be in a very small pot, far too small for the size of the plant, and this makes it more difficult for the watering, because 1 minute it'll be wet, the next minute it'll dry out so fast because the plant doesn't have much water to utilise. So if you repot the houseplant as soon as you get it into a much larger pot, straight away this will make watering easier. If you forget it for a day or two, it's not a big issue because it's got all that water stored in the compost that it can survive. So that's one of the main things you want to do, is the larger pot, and then just check it regularly as well. And the bigger the pot, the longer you can leave it without watering, but also the plant has more space for its roots to grow, also get more nutrients, and you'll have a lot faster growth, bigger plant, and a healthier plant. So that's my tips on how to make sure you're watering your houseplants correctly.